Hey, writers and news daters. I am so happy to be with you today to talk about how to get your characters to behave, because we all know they can be a little unruly. So that's what we're going to talk about today, how to get your characters to behave. And once you hop on in, please let me know where you're logging in from, and I'd love to hear what your questions and thoughts are on character as you listen. So please do say hello and let me know what your questions are as you listen to this video. And for those of you who are watching this Facebook Live on recapture a little bit later, that's fine. Please do post your questions below and I will take a look at them. And I'd love to hear your thoughts and what you're struggling with now and how I can help. So let's talk about how to get your characters to behave. Many of you were wondering in the Facebook group, Write to Publish, about engaging your reader and creating engaging characters without sacrificing the pacing or the plot of the piece. Some of you talked about being neck deep in exposition that's entirely unnecessary. And others of you mentioned that oftentimes the characters are generous enough to give you the beginning of the story and the end of the story, but they don't fill in the middle. And I can feel that frustration for you. I love what Riley said about getting her characters to behave. She said she felt like her characters were leading her on a merry chase to connect with their beginning and end. I love that phrase, merry chase. And I think that we can all relate to what that feels like to be led down the primrose path by our characters. We're not sure where they're going, and they're a little bit out of control. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So when you're writing about your characters, when you're creating your character sketch, when you're getting into character, as it were, it's not just about knowing those characters inside and out, but also knowing how they support the overall plot. That's a place where many writers get bogged down, right? And so what happens if you get bogged down in that space? Your characters appear to wander. And this can be very frustrating for writers because you think you have an idea where the story is going and suddenly we've gone somewhere else. We've got a different story. And at times that can even result in a genre change, or perhaps we've gone from a short story to a novel, or a novel to a short story, because of what ends up happening with our characters. So that can feel really frustrating for us. What else happens if we don't get our characters under control? Well, your story falters at that point and you get confused about the plot. And this is something that I've heard a lot of you in the Facebook group talk about, right? I had this story and I thought that it was going to go in this direction, and then suddenly there were 3 chapters where the main character got a boyfriend, or 3 chapters where the main character was suddenly lost in the woods, and this was originally taking place next to the ocean, right? So whatever it is that they're doing, they're confusing us. And when that happens, not only do we get confused about who are the characters, what are they doing, what's their character arc, but then we get a lot of confusion around the plot arc. And once we get confusion about the plot arc, things really start to fall apart because we're confused about all the major elements of our novel. So the number one problem that has been identified by so many of you in the Facebook group right now is not having the time to write. And for those of you who are on live, I can see you. Hello, Coriander. Hello, Andy. Nice to see you. I'm going to let you in on a little secret. And the number one problem that people claim to have is around not having the time to write. And it is true that we have very busy lives. We've got soccer games to take our kids to, and dishes to wash, and laundry to do, and lawns to mow, and whatever it is, it's taking up our time, the things that we need to do. And I know I've seen this time and time again, that writers say, I just don't have the time to write. And that's why I created the program that I did, the Writing Gym VIP program, so that writers put aside the time to write, that they're dedicated to that. And we've got many, many support systems in place so that the time to write happens. And I'd love to talk with you more about that. You can see the link on the side there, www.datewiththemuse.com/publish now. And if you want to talk to me about your characters, your plot, and finding time to write, I'd be happy to do that with you, and how the Writing Gym helps you and supports you as a writer to become published. So what does time have to do with characters? Well, here's the secret. So you've got your characters, and they're leading you down the primrose path. And then suddenly you're confused about, wait, what was this actually about? What's going on now? And maybe this isn't sci-fi. Maybe this is fantasy. Maybe this is historical fiction. Maybe this is, I'm confused. And the things that we're confused about, that causes us some stress, especially if it's something that we've been working on for a really long time. And so we go from confusion to stress to, I'm going to write every single morning at 8 o'clock. Now, if I wake up and I think, all right, I'm going to go write now, and I'm confused because my characters aren't behaving, and now my plot's all out of whack, and I'm not sure what my genre is, do you think that I'm going to sit down at that desk super excited to get started? No, of course not. And so I'm going to procrastinate, right? For me personally, when I'm procrastinating from my writing, my kitchen gets really clean. Suddenly, the tops of the cabinets are completely clean. That's my method of dealing with it. If you're watching live, I'd love to hear what your method of dealing with writing procrastination is, because we have these games that we play with ourselves to avoid writing. And so what does it come down to? We say that we don't have time to write. And sometimes that's legitimately true. We absolutely have busy lives. But most times, 9 times out of 10, it's not about the time. It goes way, way back, right? So we've got, I don't have time to write. And that's sitting on this bed of procrastination. And where does the procrastination come from? I don't know what genre I'm writing in. Where did that come from? I don't know where my plot's going from. And where did that go from? My characters are out of control, right? So there's a direct link here between this problem that everyone says that they have around finding the time to write and the procrastination that happens when we're not sure what's going to happen when we sit down to the keyboard or we sit down with our pen and notepad. So many people think that not finding time to write is about time. And sometimes it is. But more often than not, it's about putting all of those pieces together. And so that's why we're talking about character today. And that's why the very first thing that we talk about in the VIP program is getting those characters under control, how to get them to behave, understanding what your character arc is, and really knowing when you should follow them and let them lead the way, because maybe they've got some insight, because sometimes they do, and it's okay for them to go. And when we need to rein them back and say, okay, and now we're going to mold this in this way. Great. So Coriander says, going out and writing in a journal to make a written copy so I can add later, and it gives a different venue. Thank you so much for sharing that, Coriander. That's awesome. Andy says her method is organizing everything. My movies and bookshelves get perfectly alphabetized. Oh, can I relate to that? My closet becomes immaculate. It doesn't feel like procrastination because I'm technically, oh, this is so important. I'm technically getting things done. In the words of Admiral Akbar, it's a trap. Yes, indeed. Nice reference there, extra points on that one. And I have a good friend of mine, Robert Bradford. He is doing some work with me on a fiction piece right now. He's a best-selling author, and he calls that workcrastination, where you are working so you feel productive, but you're really just procrastinating from the other thing you're supposed to get done. So yes, so you're with me. You understand what this is, and it's not just about the time, that it's about the procrastination. That's all coming down to these small elements. And so that's why we're working you through these elements to really make sure you understand what is important to know about your characters before you set the plot in motion. So at the moment, if this sounds interesting to you, if you'd like to dig in more to your characters, what's not working, why can't I get this to come together, have I let my characters run too far, or are they onto something? I'm not sure. How far should I follow them? And if you're feeling like you can really relate to being bogged down in that conundrum of your characters, of that influencing where the plot is going, of that somehow influencing not understanding what it is that you're writing. If you can relate to that confusion, you're exactly the kind of person that we like to help, and to not only get through that one speed bump along the way, but also to finish that book and to publish that book. So that's what we do in the Writing Gym VIP membership. And we help writers break free from that feeling of not good enough, which so many of us have when we get bogged down in, why won't my characters behave? Like J.K. Rowling did this, right? What's wrong with me, right? We're comparing our worst moment to someone's best polished, finished work. So we help writers to get out of that feeling, to understand exactly how to use character. And not only that, but what is the industry standard? What kinds of characters are people looking for now to publish? And we speak with industry professionals every single week so that we're up to date on that information and what is being looked for right now and what the current standard is, so that we can get that high quality information to you, the writer. So we give you a yardstick to measure yourself against, one that's based on the current standards of the publishing industry. As I said, there are a lot of classes, books, ways to find out about writing. But what the Writing Gym VIP membership is a one-stop shop, right? So you go to a conference and you end up with all these handouts and your cool swag bag, and then you get home and you're exhausted. And a week later you go through them and you kind of forget, what did that person say? And you've lost the connections, and there's no one there to show you what the connections are between what that person's talk was and what that person's talk was, and how that's related to the book that you read last year. Well, we make all of those connections for you. We're working very close with you on your writing to see the improvement, to work through your character problems, to make those characters behave when they need to, and let them be unruly when they need to. We help you to see when runaway characters can be a positive and when they need to be pulled back a little, because sometimes that can be confusing, especially at the beginning of your writing career. We are currently accepting applications to the Writing Gym VIP program. If you think you might be interested, I'd love to talk with you more about it. Please note that this program isn't for everyone. I only work with writers who care deeply for being the very best writer that they can be, writers who want to find out who that writer is and be encouraged to find the very best writers. This isn't one of those finish your book in 30 days programs. This isn't for people who want that kind of quick fix. This is for people who understand that writing is an art and that art takes time, but with time and practice and the right guidance, these writers not only want to improve, but they want to publish not once, but again and again. So if that sounds like you and you think you might be interested in a program to help you get your characters under control, your plot under control, finding the time to write, some strategies around not procrastinating, and how to get that book out into the world. We would love to talk to you. And there's a link if you want to check it out. Please post your questions about characters and plot in the Facebook group. We love, love, love to hear from you, and we treasure you so much. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to hearing from you soon.